You lost your soul the day you learned to be good. Not morally good, but socially acceptable, properly adjusted, successfully normal. Every time you chose fitting in over standing out. Every time you swallowed your truth to keep the peace. Every time you performed happiness instead of feeling what you actually felt. You traded a piece of your soul for belonging. Now you're successful, acceptable, even admired. But you're also empty, because Carl Jung knew what modern life doesn't want you to know. Your soul isn't in the light of your achievements. It's in the darkness you've been running from your entire life. Jung discovered that the soul isn't some ethereal, religious concept floating above your life. It's the living connection between your conscious mind and the vast unconscious depths within you. It's the bridge between who you think you are and who you actually are. And most people have dynamited that bridge, then wonder why they feel stranded on the island of their own ego, slowly starving despite all their success. The soul, Jung realized, speaks in a language the modern mind has forgotten how to hear. It doesn't use words or logic or 5-year plans. It speaks through symptoms, dreams, compulsions, irrational attractions, inexplicable repulsions, creative urges, and what Jung called synchronicities. Those meaningful coincidences that make the hair on your neck stand up. Every anxiety attack, every depression, every addiction is your soul screaming in the only language that can penetrate your defensive rationality. I knew a banker who had everything but felt nothing. Dead inside, he said, going through the motions. Jung would say he hadn't lost his soul. He'd buried it under 40 years of doing what he was supposed to do. His soul was suffocating under spreadsheets, drowning in meetings, gasping for one breath of authentic existence. His depression wasn't illness. It was his soul's refusal to participate in his fake life any longer. Here's what Jung understood that changes everything. The soul isn't found through ascending to some higher realm. It's found through descending into your own depths. Not through meditation retreats and positive thinking, but through what he called the Nekia, the night sea journey into your own unconscious. The soul is waiting for you, but it's waiting in the last place you want to look. In everything about yourself you've rejected. The first place to look for your soul is in what Jung called the shadow. Everything you're not allowed to be, everything you're ashamed of, everything you've hidden. That's where soul hides. The anger you've dressed up as patience. The sexuality you've sanitized into acceptable romance. The wildness you've tamed into weekend hobbies. Your soul isn't in your resume virtues. It's in your rejected qualities. The shadow contains what Jung called gold. Not just darkness, but rejected brilliance. Maybe you were too smart, too creative, too intense as a child, and you learned to dim yourself. That brightness didn't disappear. It went into shadow. Your soul is often hiding in the very qualities that others found threatening, that you learned to be ashamed of, that you've spent your life apologizing for. I watched a woman find her soul through rage. 45 years of being nice, accommodating, understanding. Then her husband left her for someone younger, and the rage erupted. Not pretty, spiritual anger, but volcanic, destroy everything rage. She was terrified. Jung would say she was finally meeting her soul, which had been buried under decades of feminine conditioning. That rage was life force, was power, was her soul saying enough to a lifetime of self-betrayal. Dreams are the royal road to soul, but not in the way dream dictionaries suggest. Jung knew that dreams aren't puzzles to solve, but living communications from the soul. That recurring nightmare isn't trying to scare you. It's trying to wake you up. That sexual dream about someone inappropriate isn't about them. It's about parts of yourself seeking union. That dream where you can fly isn't wish fulfillment. It's your soul showing you that you're more than your heavy, earthbound life. The soul often appears in dreams as what Jung called the anima or animus, the contrasexual other within. For men, she appears as the mysterious woman who leads him into the unconscious. For women, he appears as the masculine figure who awakens her to her own power. These aren't real people, but personifications of soul, showing you what you need to integrate to become whole. Synchronicities are soul signs that most people dismiss as coincidence. You think of someone and they call. You need an answer, and a book falls open to the right page. You're considering a major change, and symbols of transformation appear everywhere. Jung understood these aren't random. They're the soul's way of showing you that inner and outer reality are connected, that you're on the right track, that something bigger than ego is guiding you. But here's what's disturbing. Finding your soul requires sacrificing who you think you are. The ego doesn't want you to find your soul because soul threatens ego's dictatorship. Soul has its own agenda that might not include your career, your relationship, your carefully constructed life. This is why approaching soul feels like approaching death, because it is ego death, the death of who you've been pretending to be. The soul is found in what Jung called the inferior function, the part of your personality you're worst at. If you're a thinking type, your soul hides in feeling. If you're a sensation type, your soul hides in intuition. We spend our lives developing our strengths, but soul lives in our weaknesses, our struggles, our incompetence. The place where you feel most inadequate is often where your soul is trying to emerge. Creativity is soul expression, but not the commercialized creativity of making things for approval. Jung meant the creativity that emerges from the unconscious without your ego's permission. The poem that writes itself at 3 a.m. The painting that horrifies you. The dance that embarrasses you. The song that makes no sense. Soul speaks through creation that bypasses rational control. I knew an executive who found his soul through terrible poetry. Not published, praised poetry, but awful, embarrassing verses that poured out during lunch breaks. He hid them, ashamed. But Jung would recognize this as soul retrieval through creative expression. The poems weren't good because they weren't supposed to be. They were soul speech, and soul doesn't care about quality, only authenticity. The body holds soul in ways the mind can't access. Jung understood that symptoms are soul speech. Chronic pain might be soul saying, "You can't bear your life anymore." Digestive issues might be soul saying, "You can't digest what you're being fed." Insomnia might be soul refusing to let you sleep through your life. The symptom isn't the enemy, it's the messenger. Relationships are soul mirrors, but not in the romantic way we imagine. The people who trigger you most are showing you lost soul parts. The ones you irrationally hate are carrying your shadow soul. The ones you desperately love are wearing your projected soul. Every intense relationship is a soul retrieval opportunity if you can see past the other person to what they're reflecting about you. Jung discovered that soul is often found in what he called the transcendent function, the bridge between opposites. Not choosing between light and dark, but holding both. Not picking between masculine and feminine, but integrating both. Soul lives in the tension between opposites, in the paradox that ego can't solve, but can only surrender to. The religious function of the psyche, not organized religion, but the innate need for connection to something greater, is soul territory. Jung saw that modern rationalism's rejection of the numinous, the mystical, the irrational, hasn't eliminated soul's religious nature. It's just driven it underground, where it emerges as addiction, obsession, and compulsion. Here's what Jung knew that will disturb you. Many people never find their soul because they're looking up when they should be looking down. They're seeking transcendence when they need descent. They're pursuing spirit when they need soul. Spirit rises, soul deepens. Spirit transcends, soul includes. Spirit purifies, soul enriches through incorporating everything, including impurity. The midlife crisis is often soul erupting after decades of suppression. The affair, the career change, the breakdown. These aren't mistakes but soul corrections, violent attempts to realign with authentic existence. Jung saw that the first half of life is about ego development, but the second half must be about soul discovery, or psychological death occurs. Nature is where many people first sense soul again. Not pretty nature, but wild nature. The ocean that doesn't care about you. The mountain that could kill you. The forest that gets dark. Soul recognizes itself in nature's indifference to ego's concerns, in nature's cycles of death and rebirth, in nature's inclusion of beauty and terror. Solitude is soul's sanctuary, but not comfortable solitude. Jung meant the solitude where you can't escape yourself, where distractions fail, where you're thrown back on your own depths. Most people fear this solitude because it's where ego's entertainments stop working and soul's demands become audible. Here's the practical path Jung offers. Start with 1 hour a week of what he called active imagination. Sit alone, no distractions, and let whatever wants to emerge from the unconscious emerge. Draw, write, move, speak, but let it come from below, not from above. Don't direct, follow. Don't create. Let creation happen through you. Pay attention to what you're irrationally drawn to. The book that calls to you. The place that pulls you. The activity that makes no sense but feels necessary. Soul speaks through irrational attraction. Follow these threads even when, especially when, ego says they're stupid. Notice your projections. Who do you admire? They're carrying projected soul qualities. Who do you despise? They're carrying shadow soul qualities. Who do you love? They're carrying anima animus soul qualities. Every projection is a soul piece asking to come home. Record your dreams, but don't interpret them. Live with them. Let them work on you. Jung said dreams don't tell you what you know. They tell you what you don't know. They're soul's nightly reports from the unconscious front lines. The dreams you don't understand are the most important because they're coming from beyond ego's comprehension. Engage with your symptoms as soul messengers. Instead of just medicating depression, ask what it's depressing. Instead of just managing anxiety, ask what truth it's announcing. Instead of just treating insomnia, ask what it's keeping you awake to realize. Symptoms are soul's protest against ego's tyranny. Jung's most radical insight: you don't have a soul. You are soul. The ego is actually the smaller part, the surface wave on soul's ocean. You haven't lost your soul. You've identified with something smaller than soul. You've mistaken the ego for the self, the persona for the person, the role for the reality. Finding your soul isn't a luxury for when you have time. It's the most urgent task of human existence. Without soul, you're just a sophisticated robot running on programs installed by others. With soul, you're a unique expression of the universe's creativity, a conscious participant in the great work of existence. The path to soul isn't comfortable. Jung called it the way of what is to come, not what has been, not what should be, but what wants to emerge. It requires sacrificing who you've been for who you're becoming. It demands descending into depths you've avoided. It means embracing everything you've rejected. But here's the promise. When you find your soul, you find your destiny. Not a predetermined fate, but your authentic path, the life that only you can live. You find the work that's yours to do, the love that's yours to give, the death that's yours to die. You stop living borrowed lives and start living your own. Your soul is calling to you through every symptom, every dream, every irrational longing. It's not lost, it's buried. Not absent, rejected. Not gone, waiting. Waiting in the depths you fear, in the darkness you avoid, in the very parts of yourself you're most ashamed of. Jung's invitation is clear. Stop ascending and start descending. Stop improving and start including. Stop transcending and start integrating. Your soul isn't in the light you're chasing. It's in the darkness you're fleeing. The question isn't whether you have a soul. The question is whether you have the courage to claim it, to live it, to be it. Because finding your soul means finding that you are soul, temporarily dreaming your only ego. Wake up from that dream, and you don't just find your soul. You remember that you've always been what you were seeking. That's Jung's ultimate medicine. You are the soul you're looking for. You always have been. You just forgot while you were busy becoming someone else.